Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For those who are new, welcome. My name is Monica. In today's video, I'm going to go over my reading in August. So in August, I read 45 books, but let's go over the stats so you can see where everything was at. So I read 12 arcs. I listened to 43 audiobooks. There was a time where I was taking care of sick people. My child was sick and I ended up being sick, and so I ended up listening to a lot of audiobooks during that time, as well as doing a lot of mundane work where I was putting together worksheets and stuff. I tend to listen to audiobooks, so that's where the bulk of my reading came. But I did also read one ebook and one physical book. The ebook was an ARC. So let's go over the star rating breakdown. So I had 8 5 stars, 9 4.5 stars, 10 4 stars, 9 3.5 stars, 1 3 stars. I did not rate 3 books. I DNF'd 2 books, and I reread 3 books. So, and there were some that were novellas as well, so that's where a lot of it, some of them were really short, some of them were really long. Okay, so for genre or sub-genre breakdown, I read 4 historical romances, 17 contemporaries, 1 romantic suspense, 1 mafia romance, 1 dark romance, 1 erotic, 7 paranormal romances, 10 romanticises, 1 cozy mystery, and 2 historical fiction. So I feel like I was consciously trying to get away from more contemporary romances, and I think I did a pretty good job there. But I mean, I like contemporary romances. So one of the ones that I got which was an ALC, was The Good Girl Effect by Sarah Kate. This will be out by the time you see this. It comes out tomorrow. Yeah, it comes out tomorrow because I'm filming this on September 1st. I had to think about that for a second. So this one is the next gen for the Salacious Players Club. It's called the Salacious Legacy. This is a single dad nanny. He's a widower. His wife tragically died. She receives a letter in a book. She works at a bookstore. She realizes it's from him to his late wife. She goes to give it to him, and then somehow she ends up becoming his daughter's nanny. And I really liked her. I really liked her character. I really, truly liked the daughter. The daughter was fantastic. He had a grow on me. I did not like how he treated his daughter in the beginning. He was very neglectful and outlandish, and I generally do not warm to characters like that. Personally, that's a personal thing for me, but his characterization was written really well. I really liked the development of their relationship, and I actually really liked the third act conflict, so I ended up giving this 4 stars, and I would recommend that you at least check it out. I think just because one thing doesn't work for me doesn't mean it will not work for you. I think you should definitely go and check this out when it comes out tomorrow. Well, yesterday when you see this video. But anyway, the next book that I read in the month of August, well, the second part of the month of August, and by the way, I did already do my mid-month wrap-up. I'll link that down below, so if you haven't checked out all those books, you can check them out after you finish this video. But anyway, by the letter, I gave this 4.5 stars. This was an ALC for me, and this was a one-night stand at another sex club. So I read 2 books that had sex club stuff in it, which was like, okay. But this one is about Shira. She is a young widow. Her husband was significantly older than her. We find out more of her late husband and her relationship, because everybody thinks she was a gold digger and stuff, but there was a whole nuance to their relationship, and I really liked that. And I really liked our hero. His name is Roman. He thought her late husband was a very good guy, and so he came in with his bias against Shira. Neither of them knew that they had gotten together anonymously at that sex club, and they had a problem where a condom broke. And so he said, if it happens, if you become pregnant, call the club and they will be able to track me down. And that happened. So, but once they found out who each other were, and he started talking and communicating with her about what her stepdaughter was doing to her, as well as her relationship with her late husband, and who he finds out who she is, because she is such she is such a wallflower. She is very introverted. She always goes to try and feel small to so she's not being noticed. This comes from a tragic backstory with her father. Anyway, and I understand her completely, where she doesn't want to make waves. She is very kind, and she seems cold and offstandish and aloof when you first meet her, but she's actually not. She's very caring, and I absolutely loved his brothers. His brothers were fantastic. I loved how they're like, I'm going to be, and uncles and stuff. I absolutely loved the characters, all the characters. I loved the character dynamics. I loved the entire book, and how everything was depicted, and I would recommend you check that out on the audio. The audio is very well done. And then I got an ARC, so this was my ebook for Everything She Does Is Magic by Bridget Morrissey, and I believe this comes out next week. So when you're seeing this comes out on September 9th. This is a Halloween small town sapphic young adult. So this is about these two girls in Fableview, and it's kind of like a Halloween town. So it's kind of like Salem, but Salem meets Gilmore Girls Stars Hollows. That's how well I could put give you how the small town is. And one of our heroines, her name is Darcy. She is a human. She pretends to be a witch and does art classes for these kids at her parents' shop. And she's a senior in high school. She doesn't want to stay in the small town. She wants to get out and spread her wings. Then we have Anya, who is a witch, and she is trying to get control of her magic so she's not shunned by her family. And they just sort of need each other, and they sort of gravitate towards each other. And I really loved the tension between them, but also the kindness and the friendship between them. I loved the cute little cozy town. This had all the Halloween vibes as well as the cozy fall vibes that I was looking for, and I gave 4 stars, and I would absolutely recommend this one when it comes out. And then I continued on in the Chronicles of One series. I read Year One, and then I read Of Blood and Bone. This is book 2, and this one begins years after Year One ends. So Year One, we have the apocalypse. We have a pandemic that happens that kills most of the human race. And now we are in this small town, and Fallon Swift, she is 13 years old, and she is a magical being. And in this world, the magical beings are being hunted by humans that are very much right-wing, like you are horrible, you're devious, you're anti-God and stuff like that. That's what they were kept saying. And they were also being hunted by the dark ones, the magical beings that chose darkness over light. And so Fallon Swift is going to be the savior of this world, right? This was prophesized, and so she leaves her home for 2 years, where her brothers and her mom and her stepdad are at, and because they live on a small farm. And she trains with this guy who was asleep for a very long time, for hundreds of years, and he wakes up so he can train Fallon. And the magic system is very interesting in this, and I loved the character growth. So all the information we got from book 1, it really applies to book 2. We see her growing and maturing as a character, and we see that the other 2 babies that were born in book 1, they are now her age as well, and they're twins. It was Duncan, and Hannah was the adopted twin, and Antonia. And these four babies that were born in Year 1, they are really important for the arc of this entire story. And Duncan and Fallon, they know that they need to be together because it's fated, but they are fighting it because they want a choice. And I absolutely loved that Nora Roberts decided that they needed to have that choice. And then once that was done, I went directly to The Rise of the Magics, which is the last book, and it's my favorite book in this series because it wrapped the whole entire thing up. I think I gave all these books 5 stars because this was just such a good romantasy. It's dystopian turned romantasy. And so we have the battles that begin where they basically were training in book 2. Now they're fighting in book 3. They're having the Battle of Washington, D.C., the Battle of New York, the Battle of Los Angeles, where they're trying to defeat the Dark and the really ultra religious people who are hunting them down, right? I loved Duncan's and Fallon's love story in this, and that they chose to be together. Ultimately, they did make that choice to be together, and I absolutely love that. But I love there's a lot of found family vibes in this, because a lot of these people, they lost their families in the pandemic, so they end up like building these communities and stuff. It kind of reminded me a little bit of The Stand, but better written, and definitely with more magical stuff elements in this, because I mean, you have the Fae, you have the elves, you have the witches, you have all these characters. And there's even a dragon at the end of this book, of this book series, and I absolutely loved it. And I loved how, and I'm so sorry, I'm going to continue, because my neighbor, he loves his muscle cars. But I absolutely just love this book. So I could see this entire series as a movie or as a TV show. I think it would make a fantastic TV show. And then I went on to Metal Slinger, and I gave it 4 stars. The plot was interesting to me, and I can't really tell you much about it because I don't really remember much about it. I just remember the ending. The ending, unfortunately, I was spoiled by the ending. Someone spoiled the ending for me because they realized that I was reading it, and they're like, oh, that ending. And I was like, nope. And they told me. So I really, really liked the ending. I liked the magic system. I liked the character development. We were obviously left on a pretty big cliffhanger that I can't talk about because I'm not going to spoil it for you if you haven't read it. But I would recommend it. I gave it 4 stars. I just felt like it was a little slow up until the ending, and so that's why it's not a full 4.5 or 5 stars. And then I listened to A Room for Two, and this is on KU Reading Listen, and I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was really, really cute. It's a short, fun novella, and it's about 2 people who pined for each other for the better part of the year until their friends tricked them on going on a date, because he's weird, okay? The main guy in this is a little weird. He's very, they shared a kiss when she was drunk after she found out that her fiance was cheating on her. And then years go by. He's always coming into the coffee shop that she's working at, and he just can't talk to her. He just literally can't talk to her. And she thinks he doesn't like her, but in fact he does. And so their friends tricked him to go on this date, and they had a really great date, and they figured out what their friends did and that they actually did really like each other. And I thought it was extremely cute. Again, it's on KU Read and Listen. This is from Lana Ferguson. I think if you like Lana Ferguson, you're gonna like this one. I liked it a lot, and I gave it 4 stars. It was a very solid novella. Okay, so the next book I read was The Beast Takes a Bride by Julianne Long. I was prepared not to like this book because everybody kept telling me how good it was. I gave it 4.5 stars. I agree, it is that good. Okay, so the reason why I was prepared not to like it is because every time I've been reading hyped book lately, they haven't really worked for me, and I don't know why. So I was really happy that this lived up to the hype. This is about Alexandria. She married Colonel Magnus Bridewell, and he's a self-made man and a war hero. And that was 5 years ago. Something happened on their wedding night where they became estranged. He left for 5 years, and now he's back, and he's about to be made an earl. And everybody thinks he's ugly and that he's just not a good guy. In fact, he is physically not attractive, but she's attracted to her husband. And she was really young and naive when they got married. And she stayed true to her vows to him even for 5 years. He made a deal with her that she could go to America and live on her own for the rest of her life, because he wasn't going to stay with her because of what happened on their wedding night. She agreed because she really had no choice, because at this time women didn't have their own money. They didn't we all know this, right? But they had to make appearances in society before she left for America, because he needed his reputation to be restored. And through this, and they were staying at the, I keep wanting to call it, it's the Grand Palace on the Thames. I keep wanting to call it the Palace of Rogues because that's the name of the series. It's the last book in the Palace of the Rogues series. Anyhow, so they're staying at the Grand Palace on the Thames. So anyway, they had separate rooms, and then they really started communicating what happened, and they started getting to know each other a lot more because they didn't have that time to get to know each other when they were engaged. And again, she was really young and naive. I really loved how they communicated with each other. I loved how they worked out what happened and how they fell in love for real. And I really enjoyed this book. It was a well done book. I gave it 4.5 stars. So there was that one. And then I read The Awakening by Nora Roberts, this book one in the Dragon Heart Legacy series. We are reading this for Jess's Patreon. She picked this one for September. And this I've never read before. And it is a romantasy. It starts in real life Philadelphia. Our heroine, Breen, she has made herself small because her mom taught her to make herself small. She had this fiery red hair that she was dyeing brown and just being small. And she's a teacher and she hates being a teacher. She wants to be an author. And then she finds out that her mom was lying to her about an inheritance from her father. She thought her father had just ran away. So she decides to go to Ireland to find him, right? Because she still, at this point, thinks he's alive. But she goes with her best friend, Marco, and Marco is gay. And Marco is such a fantastic character. So they go to Ireland, and she decides to stay there for the summer, starts writing, since she has this money from her father, and she stumbles upon a magical world. And she goes through a portal and into a magical world. At that point, Marco had gone back to the United States, and she finds out exactly who her father was and who she is. There's a lot of stuff that she finds out, and she meets her biological grandmother, her paternal grandmother, and her paternal grandmother is a badass, and I absolutely love her. This book, it is a great setup book because it's setting up the entire story. It sets up the magic system. There's really no dragons in this book, so check expectations. The dragons come later, but this is a fantastical world. She's going through different realms. You have the human world, and then you have the fae, elfish world as well. And we find out there's this big bad who's a god / demon who's just evil and wants her because she's the key to unlocking all the realms. And so that is the setup. And because it was a setup book, we got to know the characters a little bit. I needed more from the setup, but to care. I gave it 4 stars because it was really good. I knew, I was like, okay, I'm going to continue this. Even if I wasn't trying to read Nora's Backlist, I would have continued it anyway because I was invested in the world. I was invested in Keegan, who is our hero, and he is this Fae warrior guy, and he starts training her and stuff because she needs to learn how to fight. Absolutely loved him, and I absolutely loved Breen and Marco. So I gave that one 4 stars. And then I had an ALC I needed to listen to, and that was Alphame's Two Lovers by Jennifer Chipman. And this was, I think, given to me by Valentine PR. And I love Jennifer Chipman's cozy holiday romances, whether it is Halloween or Christmas. I just generally like this. This is about Ivy. She's a manager at Christmasland. It's a theme park, a Christmas theme park in Florida. And Teddy, he's part of the management. He's part of the Foundin family who founded this theme park and this whole business around Christmas. And they kind of butt heads at first, but their banter is really foreplay. And he's like, I want you to come home with me. And she's like, okay. And she goes home and she finds out who Teddy really is, about who his family really is, and about who her mother really was. And it was very magical. It was very fun. It was short. It was sweet. It was magical. It was definitely a little smutty. I had fun with this one, and I would recommend the audiobook. The audiobook was fantastic. It was narrated by Shiloh James and Bryant Walker. I had to look down to make sure I remember their names. But anyway, I would recommend this, especially since we're getting into the season of spooky stuff as well as Christmas, because in a couple months we'll be reading Christmas stuff. So if you haven't read this one from last year, check this audiobook out in November and December. And then I had another ALC from Penelope Ward. She gave me an ALC, which I am so thankful for. I absolutely love Penelope Ward. She is fantastic. She's a wonderful person. And I really like her writing. I gave this one, it's called The House Guest, and I gave this one 4.5 stars. And this was about Primrose. And she's living with her aunt and her late husband, who passed away, right? So Primrose's aunt was Dorian's stepmother. They died in an accident, and he ends up coming to his dad's old house, which she is living in because her aunt gave her leave to live there so she could finish art school. And he decides to let her stay, and she's grateful because she does need that place to stay. But he's like, I'll pay for your art school. And she's like, no, I will pay for my art school, but I will stay here. So thank you. And they end up becoming friends, and then more than friends. And then something happens, and there's a lot of twists and turns in this, and it is really well done. I loved the character growth, and I loved how much Dorian and Primrose loved each other. This was really true love, even with all the things that happened. There's parts where I kind of wanted to swear at Dorian, and I kind of wanted to swear at Primrose because of some of the choices they were making. However, I really loved it, and I really loved the ending, and I loved how everything wrapped up. There's stuff that I cannot talk about because if I talk about it, it's going to spoil it, and I don't want to spoil it for you. But if you haven't read this one, this is a good one. If you haven't checked out Penelope Ward yet, this is a good one to start with. I gave 4.5 stars, and it was narrated by Teddy Hamilton and Savannah Peachwood, who do fantastic work anyway. And this was no less. Like, their narration was on point in this one. And the reason why I didn't give it 4 full 5 stars is because I kind of wanted to swear at both of them at different parts of the book. I was like, come on. Anyway, and then I decided to read Angel's Blood by Nalini Singh. I've never read her before, and so I was kind of just like, I don't know what I was getting into. And I actually really liked it. I gave 4 stars. It was a very good time. I don't remember all of it. I remember he was an angel and she was an angel or vampire or demon hunter or something. And she was a badass. I really liked her. She gave him a run for his money, which I really did enjoy. But for the most part, I did have fun with this. It wasn't memorable for me, obviously, because I read it like a week or so ago, and I'm kind of blanking on some of it. But I will say this, it was fun. And I probably will continue, but it's not priority because I guess more happens in this book series with them. But I don't know. I might check out her other series as well because she has another one, the Side Changeling series, and I heard that one was really, really good. So then I moved on to Spark of the Everflame, and I gave it 4.5 stars, but I rounded it down to 4, and I don't know why I rounded it down to 4. I just did. I really loved the world building in this. Diem is a badass heroine, and she stays that way. She's smart, and she's strategic, and she's not annoying. Luther is a very elusive character, and there's a lot of secrets that were not answered. That's why I rounded it down. Now I remember. So my thing is I gotta be able to connect with the characters. I did not connect with Luther. I did with Diem. I wanted more from Luther. But I also heard that's kind of how it is in the first book, but the second book is a lot better. So I'm definitely going to continue my way through this story, this series. It is very slow burn. I didn't feel the romance because it was a lot of setup, a lot of world building, which Penn Cole, she did a fantastic job on the world building. I was not confused on the world. I was not confused on the characters. I can see where this is going, and I'm very much invested in the romance between Luther and Diem. needed more of the romance in this book because it's supposed to be a romantasy. But that's a me thing, so I'm not going to ding it on that. But 4.5 stars for that one. And then I went back into the Dragonheart Legacy series. So I read book 2, which was The Becoming, and book 3, which is The Choice. So the book 2, The Becoming, we get a lot more of Marco in this, and Marco finds out who Breen and Keegan are and what they can do and stuff. There's a lot of training, a lot of fighting, and there's a lot of romantic development between Keegan and Breen, as well as Keegan and another Fae, who's also a dragon rider, because the dragons show up in this book. And his name is Brian, and Marco and Brian are everything in this. Like, they are so freaking cute in this book. I absolutely loved Marco and Brian, probably more than I like Breen and Keegan, but that's a me thing again. There was a lot that happened in this book. We were left on a very tragic cliffhanger, and so I jumped directly into The Choice, which is the last book, and it starts off right where The Becoming ends, and it was such a good, and there's a scene in this with the baby dragons that made me cry. And we have the dragon riders, we have the elves, the humans, the fays, the witches, the demons, and of course, Breen and Marco's found family, Sally, and Sally's husband, Derek. Sally is a drag queen. I think his original name is Salvatore or something. And I loved them so much. My gosh, I love those characters. Breen is still a badass, and so is her grandmother. I loved how this book ended. I loved how they defeated the big bad. There's a couple of characters that I did feel sorry for in this, even though it was their choice. Ultimately, it was their choice. So I gave this 4.5 stars. I gave The Becoming 4.5 stars, and I gave The Choice 4.5 stars. So anyway, those are the books that I read at the end, the second half of August, that I gave 4 or 4.5 or 5 stars. Let me know if you've read any of them. Let me know what you think. And let me know if you're going to pick up any of these arcs that I was just talking about that are going to be releasing very soon, if not out already by the time you see this video. I would like to know all the things. And if you made it this far in this video and you want to let me know that you're here, please leave me a dragon emoji because of all the romanticities I've read. And then until next time, my friends, happy reading. Bye.